firm is Hawkins Ep Dumont, and we have been recently appointed auditors for the town. I'm here. I came in this afternoon for an initial visit. Met with Brian, met with Anita, one of the finance staff, and so this was my initial come and meet the new client. So that was the purpose of the trip, and certainly we appreciate the appointment. As your auditors, we do a lot of municipal work in the province of Alberta as well as in Saskatchewan. We have 3 offices: Stony Plain, Edmonton, and Lloydminster, and are very involved in municipal audit industry, particularly east and west and north of Edmonton. As you know, we have an audit client here in town already, and other communities in the vicinity: Saddle Hills, going east, Lesser Slave, Lac La Biche, MD Bonnyville. So we're well familiar with this part of the province. We enjoyed working with Horizon Credit Union, Case Horizon Credit Union, for many years before they now are merged with the credit union in Battle River. But I spent a lot of time here in Druiville, Falher area also, and also Fairview. So again, we're comfortable with the neighborhood and comfortable with working in this community. I had a chance to drive around a bit and see what is going on in your town, and there seems to be quite a bit of activity, new construction, new buildings, hospital, and that's good to see. So it gave me a good feeling, a good impression. So we're happy to be your auditors. We'll commence the actual audit process a little bit later on in the year. Of course, your December year end. I do have a copy now of your December 2014 financial statements. Brian gave those to me today. So we had a brief meeting, Brian and I, and then also Anita came into the meeting, and I'm aware that Brian is in an acting position as CEO. And I'm also aware that you don't currently have a finance manager. You're recruiting for both those positions, and we have worked with other municipalities that have had transitioning of their senior people. So I trust that'll go well, and that you'll be able to staff those 2 positions. On the finance side, of course, auditors are always they're always looking for a perfect audit. They're always looking for a perfect general ledger, where everything is, records are complete and everything is accurate, and of course, that isn't always the case, but that's what we're always looking for. So when we quote on an audit, we anticipate a good set of records that we're going to be auditing. And in a situation where you're missing a finance manager, and you have, I think, since April, so there's a couple of months already, and by the time you staff it, there could be things that aren't getting done that should be getting done within your finance side. Talking briefly to Anita, and the first time I met her today, I've actually asked her to communicate with me and let me know what areas of the finance function aren't currently being addressed. And she's going to share that information with me. Some areas that she feels just should be addressed that aren't, and perhaps won't be until your new person is in place. And so we just want to make sure that we're aware of your status, and we want to be available to her and your finance staff to answer questions as necessary, as we always do, connecting with a client. And we want them to know that they have ability to call us, email us, and we do not charge for every phone call. We want to be there to answer questions and help them along. Nonetheless, some things may not be getting done, and we encourage you to look at some alternatives there. There are contract people that work in this industry that are contract finance professionals that are around the province, and we work with some in different municipalities, because we've seen this before, and municipalities do what they have to do to keep the records current. And also too, I did offer services of our firm. We have done this kind of work for our municipal clients, whereby they needed some additional services that go beyond the audit, and we have provided those services to them as necessary. So again, we're available, and there are other contract people that we could help you connect with. So just a bit of a concern there, because by the time you staff this position, could be late summer into the fall, and it's from an accounting standpoint, you wanna keep the books and records, in an orderly manner, to allow for a good audit, you know, at the end of the year. The actual audit process, we laid that out in our proposal. I won't go through that in detail, but our plan would be to be here in November, December to do some interim work, and then after the year end, of course, start our year-end audit. I noticed that your auditors signed off, this past year, they signed off on April 28th, so they would have met with you right around that date probably, and then filed your statements with Municipal Affairs, so you filed on time. I also got a copy of the audit findings letter that they issued. There's some good comments in there. I'll go through that in more detail. And then we have already connected with, we have sent a letter anyway to this firm. They know that we have been appointed auditors. This is not an uncommon process where a municipality changes auditors. So we have a protocol that we follow with the incumbent auditor to exchange information, obtain information about your organization so that we can hit the ground running when we start our audit. That's really all I wanted to say. If there were any questions to us.
I'm good.
I didn't even take 15
Can't wait till you
minutes.
start. Mayor Cox.
I noticed that the Peace Library system is using, for amortization, they are using 4% on buildings.
Mhm.
And I noticed that Fletcher Medrick was using 50 years amortization. What does your firm use for amortization on buildings?
We use whatever the client feels is appropriate, useful life. In fact, I was in a meeting recently with a client and they had been using 2% and they changed it to 5% because it was more reflective of what their useful life is. So it's a matter of definition. Usually what I see is 2.5%. That's the more common percentage, at least in other words, 50 years. I've been told from engineers, from contractors that, you know, a bricks and mortar building has a 50-year life. That's a reasonable way to go. School boards, we do a lot of school board audits. They use that for I believe for their main structures, but for portables, there would be a shorter time period.
Okay. The concerns that you have asked Anita to bring forward, I'm also assuming that our interim CEO will be flowing through the interim CEO, the concerns. So anything brought up, you'll be aware of.
Certainly, that would always be expected, that would be the connection.
Okay. Well, that was all I had.
Anybody else?
Just thanks for taking the time to come up, meet the staff, and offering your services. That's good to hear.
Thank you very much.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're 3 minutes ahead. Next we have High Prairie Library.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. We're not here so much to give a presentation as to begin a dialogue on the money that was identified by our financial reviewer as owing to the town. We've heard all kinds of rumors coming back and forth, and we just want to start a dialogue on how we're going to take care of this issue. Donna, I'm sure that's updated you guys on what was been going on in financial review. The $38,000. There was an error. The library board feels that we've done our due diligence. We've always had a bookkeeper. We, in 2008, switched to the same auditors as the town so that it would be cost effective and also it would be easier to communicate the information. But somewhere something slipped and now we're
accumulating.
Yeah, and we didn't pick it up. You guys didn't pick it up. Or past council didn't pick it up, and that's a big chunk of money. So we want to know.
Yeah, it's the first time I got, like I'm new to management, so I'm speaking on behalf of what's been being said in the board meetings, is that it's the first time, like, since we've switched over to a new accountant, that it's actually been brought to the attention of the board during the presentation of the financial review. So,
We know it's a big lump sum, but we also want to point out that that money was not gone to waste. In the last 3.5, 4 years, we've invested over $50,000 just in the building. When if we were to walk away tomorrow, that building would be approximately $50,000 richer in renovations.
Well, it was our letter of intention that we did submit to you guys a couple of years ago. That was our intention with anything that was left over that went into our capital reserve. We'd be responsible to put it back into the building for any renovation or improvements to the building to help make it a better establishment for our patrons and to maintain it for you guys as well. So, and that's the majority. If you look on our capital reserve breakdown, it shows most of it all going into.
I see in your package you only have 2014s, you don't have 2015s breakdown of what we spent so far in your package.
Well, it's because the financial review was for 2014, so I probably just that's probably why Brian came. I sent Brian both, so just
Okay,
for the record.
there's just the one in there, but, because right now our balance as of May 28th is 30,000 in our capital reserves. And we'd really like to keep it there because, as you know, we complied and we trimmed our budget right to bare bones to, you know, to work with you guys. And already this year we've had 2 major issues, unbudgeted issues that we've had to deal with, so to lose what money we have left in our capital reserves is a very scary situation for us.
Councillor Emmett.
Okay, so, at the end of 2014, your capital reserve had $68,000. If we were to remove the $38,000 that was only donated by the town, not matched by the MD, there'd be the $30,000. So in order to have a correct capital reserve, are you asking the county of Big Lakes to toss in another $38,000?
Well, that's what we need to know from here, where we go with this. Do you guys need us to pay it back, or should we approach county to try to match that money, like?
My feelings on the matter is we'd like the money back. We can use it within our budget for spreading around for unforeseen expenses, anything else that has occurred. I don't know what has occurred already this year for capital expense. It gives you a $30,000 budget. If something unforeseen were to happen, then you could always come back and ask for more money.
But right now, we're just sitting at 30,000.
Well, the reason for that is because
So
beginning of
68.
January, it was when all the proceedings went through for
Yeah.
that great big renovation we did with
Okay.
the whole craft room getting redone and
Right.
That's
So
what-
then
that's
the
what I'm
six-
saying.
68 is
circulation
actually
desk
down
was
to how
replaced.
much right
It's
now?
down to, as of May 28th, it's down to $30,355. That's as of May 28th. And like I said, since the start of the year, we've had our janitors quit. We worked with the town to re-advertise. The ad didn't go well. We hired some of, in the past, we never had to pay for supplies. Now we have to. So these little things we haven't budgeted for, we have to account for. We had some major problem with our the router,
No, it was
some hardware
a whole
part,
server
yeah.
thing went
and
down
it
on
could have
us.
cost us a lot more. But I think the bill was close to 500. And we're only in
Yeah.
June, and these are things we haven't budgeted for. And you guys know that we trimmed our budget to the bare bones. Like there is
Yeah, we took
no
out all
meat
the
left,
stuff of our
yeah.
technology because we were trying to meet your guys' demands for a lower budget.
There's no
And so
meat
we
left
took
on
out
the
of there
bones,
and then we had nothing in there for that, so it was kind of.
So if you guys really want that 38,000 back now, there's we have 3 options. One, we close our doors before the end of the year because we will not have enough money to stay open till the end of the year. We set up some kind of payment plan, a small amount, but then that just ties up our bookkeeper and our final reviewer. We can't shut our books down. It just makes a mess. Or you guys forgive it and accept this 50,000 that we put into your building as kind of collateral for against that 38,000.
Councillor Carey and then Mayor Connors.
I honestly would have to disagree with my counterpart here. I think the town should accept part of this problem. We didn't catch this sooner. It's only been brought to our attention because of the library, so they've been very honest and forthcoming, so I think we should honor some of that. They also spend all that money to upgrade a town building, which they shouldn't have to. It's our building. We should be doing upgrades, my personal feelings. It's also my understanding that the rec board, whenever they have a surplus, they are not demanded or asked to give it back to the town. They are allowed to put it in their own capital reserves. So why can't we do the same thing for our library board? They do quite a bit for our community. They service all ages, from very young to very old. As they stated, they have already cut their budget as we asked. So the fact that they're again being honest enough to bring this stuff forward when we couldn't even catch it looks kind of bad on the town. And I think we need to appreciate our library and what they have done for this town. So I would highly disagree with Councillor Empty here and hope that the rest of the council feels the same.
Thank you, Mayor Cox.
Are you saying that you're using your, this capital reserve of 30,000 that's left for operating now?
We don't want to, but like I said, we trimmed our budget to the bone, so if something goes wrong in the building or whatever, then we have to use that, but not, it's not for
We're staying
paying, no.
within what we
No.
budgeted for you guys to meet your, where you wanted us to be with our budget. We're trimming and saving and cutting back on that, staying within our budget best we can. So far, so good, but it's just that we don't have enough in our capital or like to pay you guys back out of that, cause that's that little extra, right, to be able to give you the 38, but there's not, it's not in there, like, if that's what it came down to.
The 30,000 is still there.
Yeah, and you're saying if
Isn't
you'd
it?
like it to drain our accounts so that if something goes wrong, we have to come back feeding to you guys again?
30,000 is there and it's for capital expenditures.
Mhm.
Are you going to use it for operating, is my question.
We don't want to.
But you would.
That was not our intention with it, like our
No,
letter of
what?
intent was to try to use it for
Never been.
emergencies or things that break down in the library that we need to replace that we
So
never.
that's operating. Is it?
If our computer
I need to
dies.
know whether you intend on mixing these two accounts.
We
One is
don't,
capital.
that's not our intention with that.
Linda,
That money is
yeah.
for the end of the year, if like that goes in there, whatever's extra, goes in there as a backup for emergency stuff, like the building, like you say, like something's breaking down or whatever, we need to fix stuff that we never expected and budgeted in our normal budget, then we would have to go into there to replace something.
We
So-
originally started this capital reserve because we are crowded, that library is crowded, we know we need to expand. And we were told by a past CEO to start putting money away for those little things, and then when we need to expand, you'll have some. But unfortunately, we've had to use it for,
Well, we don't
we've used it for the bottom of the building.
We don't even budget for it. I noticed when we
No,
came to
no,
a
no.
council meeting that last time, that the rec board actually budgets in for capital reserve, and we don't do that.
And
if we
we're
possibly
kinda
can.
almost scolded about our capital reserve, and we've been
So-
saving because we know we need to expand. We've been fixing up that building. We'd love to take over the upstairs, but with the problems we've had this year, we backed up our plan a few years now for that.
So although you call it a capital reserve, it really isn't a capital reserve?
How do you get that?
I'm not
It says right
understanding.
on here, capital reserve interim statement,
Yeah, but how do you get that we're not using it as a capital reserve? Though? I don't
because you
understand.
said you might use it for operating.
Well, in the circumstance we're in right now, we'd obviously have to, like, if we paid you that 30,000 back, right?
Then
It would-
it would be use it or shut our doors down early, and that's not something we
Yeah.
wanna do. We don't wanna use it, we're just saying,
Okay, I guess what I see with town is our capital reserves are separate.
Yeah, so
we
is
work
ours. It's a
within
whole
our
other
own.
account. There's
Yeah.
two
We don't-
separate accounts.
but Linda, this is the first year ever that
Okay.
council has trimmed our budget to, we got even less than we did last year.
Okay.
Like you guys trimmed us, so that's in the back of our minds now. That was never the intention. The intention is because we eventually wanna take over the whole building, because the library needs to expand.
Councillor Enter, and then I'll take a stab at it.
Okay. So just to clarify for everybody here, what happened for a few years, an expense was added that was actually being paid from elsewhere. So the town is paying this expense. It was added into the budget. The town was paying for it. It was caught by the auditor that this had happened by mistake, and there's this 38,000.
If you, okay, can I just clarify that please before
Yeah.
we continue? Donna asked me to try and explain from our last board meeting what my suspicion was. Me and David were trying to put our heads together to figure out where this extra money would come from. Being new manager, this has only been a year I've been in this position, I'm still trying to figure out some of the books and figure out how the previous manager did things. And all I was guessing at, and if you go back to your email and look, I kept making sure I stated that. This is not a professional opinion, this is not official, this is my guess. Because that's all I gave Donna. I did not know she was going to send that to all of you. That was just us talking, and I did not know she was going to forward it to all you guys. And it kind of more or less became more official when it got sent to all you guys. And that was just me. I was trying to get David to actually respond to that, but he wasn't answering our emails at the time. I don't know if he was out of town, what it was. That's,
And keep us away.
So-
he was
so
away. So
it's-
I just was guessing that it could be, but after like further digging into it, you got the two budget amounts that we asked from you guys and from the MD, but upon further looking into it, the MD gets their bill and they still write that check to PLS and the money just shows up in our account for our book allotment. So really, if you look at it, I guess they are kind of throwing that money in extra and over and above too, so I think I was wrong. That's why I made sure I kept saying it was unofficial of what my suspicion might be. The way it was set up of her invoicing you guys separate and over and above outside of the budget was wrong still. That should be included in the budget and not separated.
So just because we have tight timelines, I wanna get
Yeah.
to the rest of my questions here.
Okay, sorry.
So any surplus of a normal budget is automatically rolled into the capital reserve. The rec does it, library does it, everybody does it, and that way they got funds set aside for it. If this money was to be returned, it's not closing the doors, and I really don't like that dagger being drawn. It's hours of operation that can be changed in order to balance a book. That's all it comes down to. Right? It's hours of operation. You don't have to say, well, it's September 30th, we're out of money, we're closing doors for 3 months. I don't like threats. You gotta just change your method of operation. That's all.
Quentin, sorry, Councillor Amter, it's not a threat, it's a reality. And if we start cutting back our program and cutting back our hours, all you're doing is dragging us 10 years. For the last 10 years, we've been fighting and we've been building our library to give the excellent services it does now. So if you guys say, well, we're taking your money back, so what we're gonna cut, our staff's gonna get all their hours cut, we're gonna cut program, we're gonna be back to what we were 10 years ago. So all that work we did for the last 10 years, all the vision sharing between the MD and the town has all gone out the window.
Well, I just look at this town per capita or the expense that is submitted to the town taxpayer is substantially higher than any other town that seems our size. When we did a comparable, so I'm not saying we cut back to that, but we held the line is what we did. We said, okay, well, let's just hold the line then. So we looked at 6 or 7 different libraries.
But every library is different, that's the problem. And
That's
we all
right.
run
Our
under the
community's
Libraries Act.
pretty unique too, so.
Oh, yes, we met with Municipal Affairs when we were in Jasper, and they said, of all the libraries in Alberta, yours is the most unique and it has the most, how did she say, different problems. Like, she just shakes her head, Bonnie Gray, every time we talk about our library because of the way it's built and because of the MD and because of everything. It's just made it that much. But we follow the Libraries Act. We do a plan of service, just like you guys do. So we answer the needs of the community. And over these last 10 years, that's what we've been told, and that's what we've done. We've increased hours, we've increased programming, everybody seemed happy. And like all of you benefit from the library. Your mother takes all her grandkids to every programming. I'm sure your kids have all
I've
been
gone
to
there.
it.
I
They've been
agree.
to everything.
I love it, and I've gone there and I've used some of the programming. It's a wonderful event. When was the last time you increased user fees, or when was?
It was just a
what
couple
the-
years ago, we brought up the memberships, but we have to go slow, because we're supposed to be a service. We're a
Ours
not-for-profit
are
service.
pretty
We-
high now, so
Well,
compared to other
we
libraries.
service the taxpayers of the town. And one thing, if you've heard over the last 30 years, is that people believe the taxes are quite high, right? And so when we look in the area, we have to figure out how to bring those down. But there's still 4 minutes left, and there's other people to talk.
Thank you, Councillor Arthur. I think part of the problem that I'm having, and if I may, I think the mayor and Emter, Councillor Emter, if $30,000 is set aside in your capital reserves, that money is separate, should be completely separate over and above your operating expenses. So what I'm hearing though is that if this money magically disappeared right away, that your budget that is meant for your operations of your library is dependent on this $30,000. And if it's not,
This is because you're my double closing the door.
so if it's not,
That's why they're getting like.
then salaries and programs and everything else should not be affected by this at all, because you already have that budget set aside. That being said, I recognize the amount of work you put into it. But when you come and make your case for this, you cannot say that this money will somehow impact in a negative way the operations of your library, because that means to me that you're using this money to help offset the expenses. And I know you're not. I know you're not.
I think where you're coming
Your
from
argument
there's
is
an
wrong,
emergency.
that's all.
We-
And so, I don't necessarily agree with Councillor Emter that this money needs to be brought back into our budgetary process, but he's correct in saying if it was, and something were to go wrong with the building, our door is open and we would be there to help where we could.
Well, it's good to know.
It's not that we're being punitive, we're trying to make sense and try to keep make sense of this budget, is what we're trying to do, and trying to remedy an error. So, yes, it's great that you have a capital reserve, I think that's important. But that's not the point here.
To date, that capital reserve has only been used to improve that building.
And I agree, and I've seen the work done.
And the reason I said that about the 30, and I'm sorry, I'm not a very eloquent speaker, but what scares me is we're only into June. We've already had 2 major upsets in our budget that
Right.
aren't budgeted for. So
Yeah.
what happens if we have another major upset?
Exactly. I mean,
And
I
think
get
that's
it.
where you're coming from. I don't
That's
think
what I'm
there's-
trying to say.
Yeah, but,
Right.
But no,
So-
you
so
make a
now
good
that
point.
know
We
that
understand where you're
this
coming
isn't gonna be used to
Yeah,
help
I
offset
mean,
no,
your
we know-
operating costs.
We know the mistake's there,
Mhm.
and we know we
And
missed it.
we both missed it on both
Yeah, and I
sides.
see you
don't
guys
know
have
how.
switched to auditors as well, maybe because you had the same lack of trust. Anyways, we went to David Bliss, and he said first year him,
Yeah,
and
we're glad he caught it now.
and Tracy caught it right away so that we can get it rectified. And as soon as he identified it, we asked Councilor Danaka, what do you want us to do? She said, let me take it to council and we'll come back to you.
Mhm.
But then there was kinda a misunderstanding. Councilor Hunter said something to the CEO, he said something to Tracy, and all of a sudden we,
Long story short, I guess our message is we just want you guys to just recognize how much we've tried to look after your building. That, we respect your building and appreciate the space that you guys give us for the library and just want that on
and in
record.
the last 4 years, we've spent approximately 50,000
We're
just on the
getting
building.
close on the time,
Okay.
so I'll give Councilor Knask, then Mayor Cox will have last.
Yeah, perhaps, I'm not really clear on what happened, and I'd like
We
to
don't
just
know
start
either.
with it. We're not sure, but
Yeah.
that this 38,000 we know wasn't matched by the MD, do we know that?
David can't trace it back. It's weird. He's been trying to figure out what it is
Because
and
the
like.
MD have their separate library board, they get their funds and they pay the Peace Library System for both Canuso and they're part of this, and then they send the money, but the town, it's a little bit more confused.
Yeah, because it kind of worked out the same way when we started looking at it and sitting down. Like, honestly, we've been putting in hours trying to figure out and crunch numbers because we want closure just as much as you guys do to figure out what went wrong because we don't want this to happen no more. We want this to be fixed, rectified, start fresh, and go.
And we
so
can
it
bring David
balances.
here, we were just trying to save
Yeah.
some money by not bringing him in
Because it
tonight,
costs
if you
us
want
to
him,
bring him here,
we
so
can.
we're
Well,
trying to
no,
save
I'm
money.
just trying to get a handle on what happened.
I'd love to know
number
that
one.
too. Being new manager, I want things to start fresh and be
But
working.
it sounds like, is
numbers.
it Janet was billing for the Peace Library System book allotment, is
Yeah,
that right?
but I don't know, Simone,
Yeah,
I don't
I
wanna
know.
go on record saying that because I don't know for
All
sure
we
if
know is
that's
it
what
comes
it
up to
was.
38,000.
Because really the
yeah.
MD still writes that check outside, out of the budget anyway, so it probably works
Yeah.
out the same that they're paying
We're not
extra
professionals, and
anyway.
that's why when David brought this to our attention, we're still trying to wrap our head around it.
Yeah.
Okay, but do we have a plan on how to prevent this from occurring in the future?
Well, that's what David and working on it right now,
Yeah.
like I said,
We've
he's
been dealing
identified
with
this
him and
problem,
trying to figure
yeah.
out trying to trace it back with you, and he has our records so much from Fletcher and Mudrick or whatever, and he's been trying to look at our old assessments, financial statements and audits, and he's trying to figure out what happened too, like it could even have been their accounting, like he's still trying to figure it out too. It's a muddle.
And see,
Okay.
you guys should have that in your books too, because
Yeah.
we
So
purposely
even
switched to
your
the
new
same
auditor,
auditors
maybe
as
he
you guys,
can,
right?
trace that
Yeah.
back for you too, and, cause it's, the same books, so hopefully we can
Okay.
rectify that.
Sure, the other thing is, I think it's really important what's been brought up, I hear, is the fact that capital reserves should not be used for operating, and
Mhm.
if a town finds out those capital
Yeah.
reserves are being used for operating
Mhm.
in this year or future years,
Yeah.
the town will not be happy, I
Oh,
can
No,
tell
sure.
you that.
like I said, we can document
It's not-
everything, it's never been
That's
used
right,
before.
and that's what we would
Yeah.
expect to see, that
Mhm.
those capitals aren't being
Yeah,
used.
and we're
No.
very
Yeah.
serious with our letter of intention, and that's what the board all voted on, that this is what it's used for and nothing else,
You
so.
guys have our letter of intent and our plan of service, it's all in there, what that money is just put away for.
And just the last thing that I'd like to clarify, and it's sort of like the same thing, I don't like the fact that you're advertising that we cut your budget. We just maintained status quo from the year before. To say that we cut you way back isn't,
Well, you didn't accept
Factual.
our new budget, is
no,
what
we
was-
didn't raise your income. You wanted I can't remember the exact percentage, but like a 10 or 15% increase, and we had kept it at 0. So to say that we cut your budget is very misleading, and it's been out there and it's been stated in, much of the media, and I think that's very misleading. Other than to say the budget's been held at a status quo, so that's my statement on that.
Thank you, Mayor Cox, you
Mine is very short because the time is up, and it is, if the money is not returned, the $30,355, as it is a capital account, it should not be used except for building, type capital replacement or something to do with the building. And you have to guarantee to us that, or in your letter of intent or wherever you want it, that it will be not used for operating.
It has been, it is in our letter of intent, and it is in our plan of service that any capital reserves is to be used for that. Right now, we're just feeling like our backs against the wall because, you know, you guys feel we should pay back, and yes, we should, but to take it from us now would be really hard on the library.
I don't understand this, how it could be hard on the library, because you're receiving your allotment.
We did
So-
not get any extra, we got exactly what we spent last year, this year.
Yeah,
But you know, cost of living has increased, utilities, all that stuff's unpredictable. Who knows what's gonna happen by the end of the year?
so how can you?
Time's
So,
up.
yeah,
Sure.
I
No,
hope you
see,
understand
now
what I'm
we still
saying.
haven't reached any kind of conclusion, though, you still have unanswered questions. Do you want us to bring David back
No.
at a
No.
future meeting?
It's not necessary.
Right.
We are at our time allotment, and we do have one
Alright.
more guest. But I thank you, and we will deliberate it and look at it, and we'll come to a decision for sure.
Tracy,
Time.
Tracy,
Yeah. Thanks for coming in, Gal, and for identifying this up front and stuff, that's well noted. And
Well, we're
again,
just trying to work with you guys, that's
yeah,
all we're trying to do.
and you do a great job in the library, I wanna stress that. You do wonderful.
Thank you. Next, we have Lois Dunn, Children's Resource Council. Hi, Lois. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I wish I wasn't following them though, but I'm here for the Children's Resource Council, and it's basically the same song and dance that you have heard in, let me see, November 26th, 2014, February 24th, 2015, and March 24th, 2015. When I came in March, it was once again to ask for us to be acknowledged as a nonprofit organization and thus not have to pay taxes. At that time, I was told, kind of hold your panties until the taxes came out. So we did that, crossed fingers, hoping that we would be acknowledged as a nonprofit and not have to pay taxes. But as you see on page 7, we got a lovely tax bill for our new property of $1,301. And on the other side of our northern property, of $5,120. So, where's my iPad? We have applied for the copter, but due to the fact that we did not know this was something that we needed to do, that does not apply to 2016. So, here I am again, asking for an exemption of taxes.
Thank you. Councilor Archer, you're first.
if I recall correctly, council did waive property tax, I think for 6 months on the northern one, across from the Church of Nazarene.
Yeah,
We never said we'd waive any property tax on your new property, house furniture, as everybody knows.
mhm,
And then the idea was that someone would be purchasing the Church of Nazarene, the one across from there, that property, and you wouldn't have any tax left, right? So that would
Yeah.
be no. But on the other one, I think the feeling was that that would be taxed this year, and that next year, if you qualified for copter, then it would be waived.
Mayor Cox.
I thought that the copter was supposed to come for 2015, because you applied for it in 2014.
we were too late. It has to be submitted by September, and we did not find out about it until November, that was something that we were supposed to be doing.
Oh, Okay, so in 2016, the House of Furniture property will
Yes.
be, okay. And therefore, I believe we were looking at the sale of your property there to cover the taxes
That's a possibility, I
of
guess.
the House of Furniture.
Yeah.
That's what I think our conversation was, that I remember. So, given that fact, the only one that's really a concern at this point then is the lot across from the Church of Nazarene.
Yes.
Councilor Burness.
Yeah, I guess it was a question. I thought, and that was the same, I thought we had waived the taxes for 15 on the old site there. And
We
if
weren't gonna
it's-
waive it, we were just saying, let it go. They won't be able to pay it until the property is sold, so don't get too upset over the fact that it's gonna stay outstanding until the property is sold.
Was that for
The House of Furniture.
the House of Furniture,
Yeah.
but what about the church, or the other one, the Church of Nazarene? I thought we had said that we weren't going to, or that there would be no taxes on this one, like in the one in the north. I'm just trying to get my facts straight, but that's what I sort of remember,
That's what I recall as well.
yeah.
And that would require, a request, I believe, a written request.
There was a request that was brought to council, we discussed it. As far as I can recall, the idea was that we would be buying the property back, at the cost plus improvements and all the rest. And it would be done by June, so we could waive 6 months of taxes, and then it'd be our property, there'd be no tax for the next 6 months.
Right.
That's what I recall from the conversation.
I wasn't part of that conversation.
It was,
No.
it was public, it was public.
Oh, okay.
We were turning off, what could we do to
Yeah,
help
okay.
without setting a precedent for other nonprofit organizations, because there are other
Yeah.
nonprofits that own property also. And I think that that it was, kind of like, okay, well, we can, 50% of it, we can absorb. And 50% still would stay with you from January to June. And the House of Furniture one, that would be taken out of the sale, so you wouldn't be worrying about that one at all.
Okay.
So I think that was,
Two quick questions. One is, when are you looking at being out of the old site? Cause it was June and I know we're there. I think that's what the plan was. Is there
Yeah,
a new?
no, it's gone.
It's
That,
already,
Oh, you've
that
moved out
modular
for-
is moved over
It's
to our
gone
new
already.
area,
You're
yeah.
all- okay,
So actually, we were just waiting for you to give us a check and we're done.
okay, good. And the other question is around the copter. When do you expect to hear back on that? Like, I know the deadline, you missed it for the last year, but when are they likely gonna get back to you?
Well, like I said, we can't apply until September.
Oh, like there's just, I thought you applied already
No.
in November.
Well, I need my treasurer here, but she's sick. So, cause I've asked her, I said, is this done? And she says it's done, so I don't know if it's done and can be sent, or if it's, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know.
I was thinking you could apply now and then they would let you know by September or
Oh.
something so that we could.
I keep asking and she just,
is it a yearly application?
yes, I believe so, yes,
No.
yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that we can go ahead with the sale of the land and then go from there, right? We can work at the tax details.
On the northern one.
Yeah.
Just, for council's information, we're changing the property back over into the town of High Prairie right now, so it'll be ours, so we can sell it, so
No, okay.
that's where we're at now.
So, does that tell you what you needed to know?
Well, I don't know if I'm not hearing it correctly, but, so, once the check is handed to me, does that still mean we owe half of this 5,000, or is that over and done with? We owe nothing for the northern property.
It's actually 3,800, unless you
Okay.
don't pay until January next year, then it's 5,000.
Okay,
So the 3,800, I believe is that you're gonna owe 0
okay.
on that one. On the other one, unfortunately, it is the $9,667
Only-
part.
Only municipal portion.
28.
Oh, sorry,
28.95.19.
Yeah, the 28.95, well, would we not also be on the hook for half the Hard River Housing, half the Rex levy?
And they
So-
would be on the hook for the other half.
Yeah, so you would owe like $120, or just less than that, on the north property.
Oh,
Do you see what we're saying? Like the municipal tax we can waive, but the Hard River Housing levy, you'll owe 6 months, we'll owe 6 months. So you'll owe $18.20.
oh, okay.
And the Rexplex levy, you'll owe 90,
Okay,
$4, and we'll owe the rest.
okay, so we'll half and half,
Yeah.
okay,
No,
But
half would be
the
there.
municipal levy, that we can take care of.
okay.
Good catch.
School levy. They have to pay that.
Any other
It's the only one that
questions?
gets- No. So we're good.
Others?
I believe they have to pay the school levy
The
too.
school, 6 months of that too?
Yeah. Would be 300%.
Yeah, $350 on top.
Okay,
So $500 total,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
So $3,300 less.
One more question.
One more.
So what I'm hearing, Councillor Ector, is you're waiving the full year
Yeah,
of
because
the CRC?
well, actually, we're waiving the 6 months, because 6 months will
Oh,
own,
I see.
right?
Okay.
And we were waiving
Yeah.
6 months.
Right.
So then, that is the 1 year free, or 6 months free for them.
So you're waiving 6 months?
Yes.
And then, okay, and that will need a motion eventually, but you can't
Yeah.
make it out of it. Okay.
That's what I thought we.
That was done already. That's already done.
I think that's already done. It's been a motion that already passed, yeah.
Yeah,
Look that up.
we'll have to look that up, but I'm sure that was already done.
Any other questions, any other information?
Yeah, you guys are just asking about the motion, it's already motion number 13215. Moved by Mayor Cox that council approve the grant request of the High Prairie District Children's Resource Council in the amount of up to 311078 be taken from the operating budget.
There you go.
That was the 15 we were talking, cause I looked at that motion, I was wondering, well, was that the 2014 taxes or the 2015 taxes? But it's out of the 2015 operating, so it must have been the 2015. Okay, and the reason I said up to was because I wasn't sure how much it was going
That's
to be.
right.
So you're set. Just wait on these notices, or you don't have to do it.
Well, she's already got them, so we need to actually correct this,
And make it, yeah.
cause this
Can't
came out
correct.
incorrectly. We waived it. We waived it back in March
That
or
one.
whatever, yeah.
But the House of Furniture will have to just
No,
sit there.
that one is,
Just
actually,
sit there
they're
until,
over, or they are paid.
They'll have to waive the penalties.
waive the penalties. We will waive the penalties
Well, it's-
because we're taking the money once the sale is done to pay these taxes.
Oh.
So
Okay.
the penalties will be waived,
Okay.
and we're gonna pay it out of sale.
Okay.
We're good?
Think so, you gotta smile.
Like I
nearly as
said, the
painless.
treasurer's not here, so to me, oh yeah, okay, we'll see when I get back to the office what she says.
Just get the copter.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ah. On to public delegations.
I'm Sharon Cox. I would like to publicly thank Mayor and the councillors that campaigned vigorously for lower taxes in High Prairie. I'd also like to thank the councillors that came along after and saw that it could be done. And thank you to the acting administration for bringing back samples to the council, showing them how it could be done and working towards that, and working towards it in an agreeable way. I sit here and I watch, and what was presented to the council, I was very impressed. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public delegations? Delegations, seeing none. On to 2D, which is page 9, Public Works Lift Station number 7 construction timeline. Mr. Walker, you're up. Council carried.
Make a motion that council receives the lift station number 7 construction timeline for information.
Thought I could answer it from back there, this is just an information item for council. The contracts haven't been executed yet, but we did have a pre-construction meeting. And it just outlines a timeline of when that will be up and running and completed.
And it's on track?
It hasn't started yet, but everything else is on track. We just have to execute the contracts, and they're looking at starting towards the end of this month. I guess we could probably entertain any questions you have at this time in regards to the other projects as well.
Lift station number 7, where is that again?
At the hospital.
That's the hospital, that's what I thought.
And that will,
Councilor Etienne.
and that'll help with the flow for the lift station that, services Silverwood? Crescent? Because there was a, that lift station, I think there's a smell that's talked about often for a few houses in that area, and it's because there's
Once the hospital's on there, it'll put higher volumes of water, and the water won't become as septic as what it is there. We have plugged off some of the manholes in the area, put corks into the vent caps,
Okay.
but we can't plug them all because
No.
they do need to vent.
Okay. But from what I recall talking to some of the residents, the reasoning was that there's just not enough flow yet
Yeah.
to be able to build in the future, we're waiting for it. And once it comes online, then things should
Well,
equal
once,
up.
the actual power supply won't help that, but once the hospital's up and running, that
That's
will
what I
help
mean.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Just for your information, the number 4 lift station is up and running. It has been for about 10 days now. And we will be budgeting for next year to knock down the old one and decommission it.
Any issues with the new one? No, it's
No,
running
she's
good.
running, purring along.
Yeah.
For the next 50 years.
Nothing cool.
We hope 50 years at least.
As far as Railway Avenue goes, they're planning on being completed there by Sunday if the weather cooperates with them. And on 52nd Avenue or 51st Avenue, they're 3/4 of the way down the block with the water.
There were some discussions from some of the residents that, in watching the paving, they're seeing the degradation of pavement and asphalt up the street by meters away. But their concern is that asphalt is now just gonna crumble and just be big potholes off the new stuff, and that they didn't go far enough up the street towards asphalt, maybe it is.
No, they've done proctor testing along the curves as to where the base hasn't been. And you'll see if you drive down there, they pulled out the base where the base needed to be repaired.
Great.
I think Michael's talking about the side streets, so you're
The
talking.
side streets themselves.
Like going back up, say 47th.
Okay.
Instead of just along Railway Avenue.
Yeah, they've pulled that, they've tried to make it so the water will flow there. Until we do the improvements on those streets, it could be of concern, but it should not affect what's being put in.
Okay.
I'd just like to say, it was great to see the street sweepers going down the highway there, cause
This morning too, eh?
Yeah.
Just
It
before
was
council.
good. They do a wonderful job of it. It looks great.
And 51st Street agreement with E-Construction should be here tomorrow to be executed. And they want to start very quickly, and they have their plans on moving the asphalt plant here now, and will operate out of Hyper.
Good.
So that runs from KFC to the Grey Roof School?
Yeah. And we should have those here tomorrow for Mayor Cox to sign if she's available.
Right.
So they will start this weekend, or they don't?
As soon as they get finished on 51st, they will move to that location and possibly even sooner than that.
They go from 51st to 51st.
East, west, north,
North,
south.
south.
Any other discussion, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. And 3A, starting with page 11 on the agenda, is the special meeting of council, May 20th, 2015. Councillor Hunter.
Make a motion that council approve the minutes from the 2015 special meeting of council as presented.
Discussions? All those in favor? Carried. And number 2, public hearing, May 26, 2015, page 13, Councillor Carrier.
Make a motion that council approve the minutes from the May 26, 2015 public hearing as presented.
Discussions? Mayor Cox?
Oh, no, I don't.
No? Okay, Mayor Cox has nothing to say. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And next, regular meeting of council, May 26, 2015, page 17 of your agenda. Oh, Councillor Hunter beat you to it.
Make a motion that council approve the minutes for the regular meeting of council held on May 26, 2015 as presented.
Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. And finally, number 4, special meeting of council, May 6th, 2015, page 25 of the agenda. Councillor Carrier.
Make a motion that council approve the amended minutes of the special meeting of council in camera personnel from May 6, 2015.
Discussion.
I requested a recorded vote, please.
Mayor's requested a recorded vote.
Can I ask what's changed?
This is for the change.
What was the change?
It's written highlighted in the bottom of this. That's the new motion. Should reflect that motion. The motion should, you should read that.
You have to read it.
Read that motion out there.
Mr. Chair. The motion was that council directs the mayor to discuss with legal counsel the mutual conclusion of the existing CAO, Chief Administration Officer's employment contract pursuant to a memorandum of agreement that provides this Chief Administration Officer with 12-month severance.
Okay.
So it's recorded vote. Any further discussion on it, or?
I don't know.
Pardon me?
I don't know.
Councillor Panassi.
No, I'm just making sure, what we're doing is amending it to what the lawyers are saying, that's
Yes,
basically.
that's all of the changes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Unanimous.
So should we record the minutes?
Yep.
And business arising, none. Public hearings, none. New business, 5, page 29, LSLEA representative. Page 29.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, sure.
I would like to withdraw from this because it might be perceived that it's a conflict of interest, and I don't want it being said afterwards that I influenced any discussion on this.
Yeah, we're still good.
Councillor Carrier.
I'd like to make a motion that council appoint Councillor Debbie Rose as the appointee on the LSLEA, Lesser Slave Lake Economic Alliance Committee, and Chairperson Michael Long as the alternate until the Town of High Prairie's next organizational meeting.
Discussion.
My only question is to Councillor Long, you were appointed to the board, you're okay with this change?
I am. There's far too much travel for me to do well, and Councillor Rose has been doing a good job in attending in my stead, and I appreciate that. I don't have necessarily a concern over it, but our next organizational meeting is up in October, and from there we can go.
Perfect.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Have we spoken to Councillor Rose?
Called the
Sorry.
question.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Carried.
Oh, she agrees.
She does.
She initiated. And amending policy 60214, CAO hiring and firing policies, page 30 of the agenda.
make the motion that council receive the amended policy 60-2014, the policy for hiring and firing the CAO for information.
Discussion. Councilor Carrier.
I just wanted to make it clear, although it was stated in the Southeast News that it was me that wanted this policy brought forward for change. It was not me, it was Councillor Rose that wanted this change, that she did not like the policy. So I just wanted to clear the air and make sure that it was said as such. I was hoping actually Councillor Rose would be here to speak on this policy, as she's the one that had words to say about it.
Councillor Enter, then Mayor Cox.
Okay, just to clarify then, if somebody was to be hired as an administrator for a 6-month or a 1-year term, would that be allowed? So let's say, for example, that Mr. Peterson had been available, we could have hired him for 6 months. Would we have broken our policy or not? Because are we hiring him as a full-time CAO, or are we hiring him as a temporary until we get a CAO? That would be, where's the wiggle room?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I hear you.
We hire him as an acting CAO is what we do.
And that's my point. It's be the same as you hire me as an acting CEO, or appointing somebody as an acting CEO. It's only acting, so until the time that you have the full-time CEO hired, so.
Mayor Cox.
Good.
You got a lot of yellow on that page, girl.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm looking at,
Highlight it all.
and I don't like the word firing, I would have gone with termination, but that's wordsmithing. So, I don't see here, well, another course of action for, I guess the thing is that we are always recommended that we should be using a headhunter. That this is what gets us into trouble all the time, is by having too much wiggle room. And by assuming that we know better than every other municipality around, that also goes down that route of, well, we can do it ourselves, and then they end up in a mess. So, I'm not sure if I really like this revised draft at this point. And I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but I'm very, or another course of action, but it doesn't really tell me what the course of action is. That was my total comment as to what the other course of action is.
Councilor Carrier.
Just a suggestion for Madam Mayor, if you don't like the policy, as I stated to Councillor Rose, redraft it, bring it back for council's approval.
Yeah, I wanted to.
I wish it would have been stated like that in the paper, instead of me getting a lot of phone calls asking me why I'm constantly trying to change policies in this town, but
You're the one that's always wanting to follow policy.
folks read the paper, I get phone calls.
I like the motion, don't go for information, I'm ready to go for information for
Councilor Nassy.
I was just gonna speak a little bit on, I know where Debbie was coming from, because she had talked to me about it, and although I don't wanna speak for her, I'll try, what her points were, and, she did talk with municipal affairs and said that, that what she got from them was the fact that there are, the municipal affairs thought there might be a little more leeway in there, so we'd have, where we could go another route if we really thought that was a better way to go at a particular time. For example, maybe there was somebody that we knew was a good CAO, for example, the one in Valley View, that might have been able to step in and wanted the job. Now we still had to tie ourselves to going through a whole headhunter, the $20,000-$30,000 that's associated with that. And so by being tied so tightly, we could not, we're tied to spending $30,000, even though we know that there might have been a good person out there, and we could have picked that person up without those additional costs. I think that was the intent of leaving that trying to create this policy so there was just a little bit of wiggle room for those kinds of situations. I'm not sure if the wording of this makes it clear that way. You know, it's hard to write it in you'd have to sit down and really think about it, but that was what she was saying, is that we must open the door for those kinds of situations, otherwise we're wasting taxpayers' money.
My only concern, and I somewhat echo, I think, the mayor, is we're bound by these policies now because of the failure from other councils in the past to either adopt or to follow the policies they had in place. And that's what got us in trouble before. And we've come a long, long way, I think, in addressing a lot of those issues. This needs some work. I like the idea of giving us a little more flexibility, but we don't have the expertise, and that will get us into trouble if we do have too much wiggle room. We're not the experts, not even close. So it needs some work, and if it comes back revamped, then maybe it needs a subcommittee to sit down and look at it to come up with a plan. Maybe we can have an ad hoc to help Councillor Rose and make this work.
For the policy committee, right, Mr. Councillor Panassa?
Exactly. We'll get that fired up yet. It'll come around. We see the need for it. Yeah.
Any further discussion? We'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried.
And I think we should spell out on this one the acting also, that acting, because that is a good point that needs clarity moving into the future for future councils, that this does not cover acting positions. And so that's part of that redraft that we might want to add to it.
Those are things we can discuss at an ad hoc committee meeting or at a future date. Right now, we're on to finance budget highlights, page 35, mill rate and budget highlight. And Councillor Emster.
Make a motion that council receives the 2015 mill rate and budget highlights for information, and to direct administration to post the budget highlight to the Town of High Prairie website and forward a copy to the Southeast News.
Discussion. Councillor Carrier.
Kudos to administration for drafting this up. I showed a few people and they were thoroughly impressed with it. Looks great, nice breakdown, easy to follow, read, and understand was a few of the comments I got.
I'm wondering if we can put that in our utility bills, but I'm not sure if that's a possibility at this time.
It would take a lot of stuffing, like the envelopes are fairly full and this is a 4-page.
You sure like that idea?
I sure do.
One page is one page.
Councillor Panassa.
I echo the thoughts that this is really, really good. The one other suggestion might be where the income comes from that we could add to it in terms of, you know, where the income comes from, because we don't really talk about the income in here, just so all of the town knows where we get our income from. We talk about our expenses, but not the income, except they do talk about income when it comes to capital, but not operating. And it'd be nice that people could see how much of it was taxes, how much was utility rates, how much was grants, just to clarify that part of it. But what was done was really great. And just one other question about this was there a plan, and going at the operating budget, and there was an expense reduction on page 37 to $163,000. Now that's just an overall expense reduction, but my understanding, if I remember correctly, is that that 163,000, there was specific budgets were identified for that amount. So specific budgets should have been reduced, I thought, so we wouldn't have had it as a separate line item. I'll ask administration about that, I suppose, or.
Well, actually, they can answer, but I think what they were gonna say is, I think we gave them carte blanche to take that 163 wherever they had to in order to make that balance.
Vern got the breakdown, actually.
I can say that the bulk of it came from Public Works.
Well, I remember the sheet that when we've got it, and this
It
is where
was-
we were gonna reduce,
Yeah.
and so I knew there was specific line items. And that's why I thought those specific line items should have been reduced as opposed to a separate line item.
I guess when we created this, it was more to identify the highlights and just the things that were standout. Reducing the budget, we could have done that, but then we would be adding another page to the whole document. I guess it's our first kick at the cat, right?
I'm not sure how it would have expanded it. So instead of saying, for example, if Public Works took a hit, well, you got 1.8 million, instead of 1.8, it was 1.7. And just left it at that. But it's a minor thing. I was just thinking that we do have a final budget and there's not a line item that says expense reduction. I
The
think there's
operating-
line items, every line item's been reduced a little bit to make it.
Yeah, the expense reduction is 163,000, and then, we just thought that we were, we did what council requested. We just put it in there as a general thing, not to say that one department took more than the others, but,
Oh, that's fine. The rest of it is great.
Looks better in color, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have color. I'm sad. You dance to it.
Oh, yeah, that was the good one.
Yeah.
It was.
So,
Are there any further questions, any discussions on this?
Just for council's information, I passed this on to Bill Costu at NB of Big Lakes, because they were getting some flack as to where their $1 million was going to. So this shows a breakdown of what, the county of Big Lakes, pardon me, is funding for Town High Prairie project, so
So I'll put that one to rest.
hopefully.
I just was wondering with my one question about adding the income, if maybe we could do a friendly amendment to the recommended action, and then make that as a motion on what if we're done the questions.
Let's put that in.
that's what I was gonna say, we can do that quite
We'll just do
quickly
that.
tomorrow. Before it gets,
So,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Mayor Cox.
I have one question, and it's, and it probably could have come with Public Works, but the sewer upgrade to the Elks Campground, are we going ahead with that? That's not the sump pump, is it?
That's
no,
put the sewer
no,
in.
it's the installation of, service locks.
Yeah, okay. As
And,
long
and
as
we
it's-
are planning on going, ahead with it. We did some modifications to the bathroom facilities out there, and we are going to be talking to Mr. Murdoch to see if he will open that up, ASAP, and we'll do our construction as we give time, through it, because I know there are people that are working at the hospital that are interested in staying there, even without having fully serviced lots at this time.
You might wanna discuss with him whether or not we should actually move that sump, whether we should just close it down. They have 2 sumps, so two sewer dumps at that RV out there, and why not direct the traffic out to the Elks grounds? So, I don't know
We
why.
will still have to, we'll still have to install the, we don't have to have it as a dumping station, but we still have to, install a sump in order to have a place to, pump for the service lots. So adding a dump station there is probably not that costly, if,
Why not? Anyways, think about it.
Again, great job. Any further discussion? And you're okay, that it's gonna get done so we don't need to direct?
Yeah, I'm all right. as long as they're gonna do it, put it in.
We'll do it.
Perfect.
Call the question. All those in favor? We'll take a 10-minute recess.